It's our Haggadah study tonight. We're going to start our discussion of the concept of haseba, of reclining. So the Mishnah in either Arab Psachim or Arvei Psachim, Tosfos brings down two texts of that. Says next, when it comes close to Mincha, a person cannot eat until it gets dark. Even the poor person of Israel should not eat until he reclines. Meaning to say, and Rashi and the Rashbam, in their commentaries on the page of the Talmud, write that they should not eat on the night of Pesach until they recline like a free person, to remind us of freedom by reclining on a bed and on the table. So it's clear from Rashi that the reason for the mitzvah of reclining is because it reminds us of freedom. So to remind us, like matzah is the bread of freedom. And so therefore, or the whole Seder night is about freedom. And so too, the Jerusalem Talmud says that slaves typically eat while they're standing on the run. That's how Jews eat at a kiddush usually. They eat while they're standing on the run. But a person who has time doesn't just eat on the run, he reclines. So therefore, that shows that we went from slavery to freedom. The Meiri adds to this that through reclining, it also hints to freedom and redemption, and therefore that'll remind us to give praise to the one who let us out. So there are two aspects of it. One is we act like we're free, and two, we remember to give praise. The first time the word haseba appears in the Torah, it never says it directly, but it says that in Parshas Beshalach, when Hashem led the Jewish people out, it says, "Vayasev Elokim es ha'am," that God led the people on a circuitous route. So from here, the rabbi said that even a poor person, this is the Midrash Mos Rabbah, says even a poor person must recline, because that's what God did to the Jewish people. So this is the second explanation, that it's not about the way we recline not about aspect of freedom, but it's a reminder that this is the way God led us out of Egypt in using the word vayasev, which is a pun on the word haseba, meaning to recline. And Nitziv writes on that this is the source for reclining. The Likutei Yehuda brings in the name of the Ger Rebbe an additional reason for reclining. So this is already almost a modern explanation. Is that one who eats in reclining typically eats in a quicker manner. You eat in haste. So therefore, I don't know how that works. I think it's just the opposite, that when you eat in a reclining manner, you eat in a slower manner, but that's what he says. Okay, so now there are some different aspects to this concept of reclining. Most people today, they don't really like sit down. I never seen anybody have a Seder where they lie down on a couch, what they used to do. Most people just bring a pillow, then they lean against the pillow and they just lean a little bit to indicate that they're reclining. Because nowadays, most people don't, it's awkward for us to eat while you messed up your clothes. So let's see. So the She'ilto says that it's rabbinic law. And however, the Rambam writes, a person on the night of Pesach has to demonstrate as though he left Egypt, and so therefore he need to recline. And so it's possible to read the Rambam as saying that it's a biblical commandment, but most people say that even according to Maimonides, it's just a rabbinic commandment. Some say that this idea that we're reclining is actually the fulfillment of the mitzvah, that there's a mitzvah from the Torah to demonstrate that we went free. And so therefore the reclining is the manner in which we demonstrate that aspect. So the Pri Megadim writes that if you eat the matzah and you didn't recline, you did not fulfill the mitzvah of eating matzah. So that's an interesting idea, that you'd have to eat the matzah again and again and again. All right, well, I have our matzah. By the way, tonight is Rebbe Melech, the Yortzeit, and I have a lot of matzah coming tomorrow on the Yortzeit. The Maharal and the Bach write that in the time the temple was standing, they needed to eat the Paschal lamb by reclining. Okay, so what about matzah? So we already said that some say the Pri Megadim says you haven't fulfilled your obligation. So, oh my gosh, the Pri Megadim. Okay, fine. So that's the idea that you have to recline when you're eating the matzah. What about when you're eating the afikomen? So people say there also you have to recline. You have to recline when you're eating the afikomen. That's a debate. That's a debate. What about drinking the 4 cups of wine? There too you have to recline. Although there's many different positions, there too the upshot is you have to recline. Yeah, but you have to just recline a little bit. Yeah, you have to be careful. Yeah, yeah, it's a little bit challenging, I guess, like this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's some say you have to recline the whole seder. That's how some say that you have to recline the entire seder. Okay, let's say you didn't recline. There's a whole debate whether or not you fulfill your obligation. What about by maror? Are you supposed to recline when eating the maror? So the Gemara says you don't need to recline when eating the maror. And Rashi says because the maror reminds us of our servitude, and so therefore that's why you don't need to recline. But are you allowed to? So the Beit Yosef says you can if you want. The Shulchan Aruch says actually you're not supposed to recline. You need a checklist. But the basic concept is for freedom you recline, for the things that represent servitude you don't. Let's say you ate the maror while reclining. You need to go back and eat it without reclining. That's a dispute. Okay. What about by the some say, what about by the korech, the sandwich? So what do you think there? So some say that you don't need to. Most say you don't need to recline there. Why? Because one reason is because there's the maror inside of it, and another reason is because you already ate the matzah. But others say no, you should recline when you do it. So that's all dispute because you have the matzah and the maror. So you're not supposed to recline for the maror, but you're supposed to recline for the matzah. So should you recline when you eat the korach sandwich? So that's a question. The Shulchan Aruch rules that you need to recline for it. Okay. What about for the karpas, the parsley, the potato? So that some say you don't need to. But the Bercha Yosef says, because what does karpas mean? It means that samach parach. It stands for the fact that the Jewish people were in servitude 600,000, and so therefore it's like the maror, so we shouldn't recline. But the Abu Draham says that you should recline with it, and so that's a whole dispute whether or not you should recline, and so therefore some say you're supposed to, some say you're not supposed to. So what do you do? So of course you're supposed to eat half reclining and half not reclining. Beautiful, right? Right? Half reclining and half not reclining. What a teaching. What a teaching. Okay.
And if it's a Darabanan, we should be Safek Darabanan Nakula, no?
Yeah, but we don't know what the leniency here is. It's not, neither one is a leniency because you're not supposed to recline for the maror and you're supposed to recline when it's not the maror. So either way, you're giving up on one thing. So that's why it's a challenge.
Thank you.
I don't know. It's a little tricky. Okay, the Ramah, what about during the meal? The Ramah writes that ideally one should recline the whole meal. Wow. That's hard. It's very hard today because we're not used to it. So it's brought down in that Chazon Ish and Stipler, they did not have the practice requiring the whole meal, but only when they ate the required and the drinking the 4 cups, because you can't eat while reclining, and so therefore he said it's too hard for us today. Okay, so that's about reclining there. What about when you say the Hallel and the Haggadah? So you're requiring for that. So the Pri Megadim writes that you should really recline for the whole. You should recline the whole meal except for the Hallel, because the Hallel you should be standing in awe or sitting in awe and doing it. Okay. What about nowadays? That's what I was saying. Nowadays, is it any different? So the Ravya is the German Tosafist writing in the 12th century. So this is already back to the 12th century. He says, nowadays, we don't have the practice to recline because people nowadays don't recline as a way of demonstrating their freedom. And so therefore, a person should just sit regularly. Wow. So he uproots everything. And I could see, Jeff, you're sympathetic to that because times change. It's not a mark of freedom. It's a mark of actually like boorishness today. Somebody would show up at your meal and just sit on an easy chair, and they would think he's no table manners.
That's the Greek thing anyway, right?
Yeah, it was the Greeks, not a sign of freedom. But that's the position of the Ramah. Let's see how it's accepted. So the Ravya's position is brought down in the Ramah in the name of the Aguda that if you drink the one without reclining, you shouldn't go back. The source for the Ravya is even earlier in the Gaonic period in the Sheltos of Rav Hai Gaon, who says that a woman doesn't need to recline because women don't typically recline. So therefore, that proves that reclining is something that's based upon the current custom. And so therefore, since nowadays we don't recline, therefore you don't need to recline. The Maharal writes, he's very much bothered by it. He says, this is a shocking position. What do we care that you don't recline the whole year? This night we have to demonstrate that we're like free people. And I do think that the Rav Yo's position loses a lot, because what we're trying to do really is not just act the way we act today. We're trying to put ourselves into the mindset of those who left Egypt, or those who are really reenacting the past Goam and the Seder. So you have to put yourself into that by changing your posture. And so I think it's a bit challenging. I think he gives up a lot. So I really like the position that you're supposed to recline, but if you forget, you could, for the 4 cups, you can rely upon this Ravya. But ideally, you're supposed to recline. Okay. Okay. Then there's all sorts of questions which we're not going to get into. What about a son with his father? Is it disrespectful? Or let's say his father is his teacher, or a student with his teacher in front of the Ador, because maybe it's a sign of disrespect. There's a whole discussion in that in the Talmud. Okay, we're going to skip all those. And okay. Okay, now how do you recline? How do you recline? This is the question we discussed. So here too, there's several positions about this. One is the Rashi says you have to recline when he sits on the bed, like he sits on a bed. So like basically, I guess for us to understand this is like how you would sit on one of those rocking chairs, leaning back. So yeah. And therefore you need to sit next to the table. It's hard to understand exactly how they sat. Tosfos writes that even a poor person should not eat until he reclines, because a wealthy person has pillows, and so therefore he reclines in a manner of freedom. But a poor man, he only has a bench,
we might have thought that it's not freedom for him to recline, so he doesn't need to do it. So the Mishnah says that a poor person is also liable, responsible to recline, obligated to recline. But it's clear from this position that the way in which you recline is you add pillows and you lean on the pillow. That's what you do. You lean on the pillow. This also makes sense because a wealthy person. Hello, my friends. Good. We're doing the Haggadah. We're doing the Haggadah study. Do you have one, Jeffrey? Did I have one on the table?
Yes, but I have a study.
Do you have Haggadah there? Let me bring you guys one.
Where, Jeff? How are you? We're good.
Yeah, and when somebody else walks in, you give it to them.
Should talk about reclining at the.
It's called Haggadah, reclining at the Seder. So also, Jeff, it is a sign of wealth to recline with your pillows, because a poor person wouldn't bring his pillows to the table because he'd be worried that they're going to get dirty and stuff. So it's an extravagance. And you have to, the way you recline is you put your head to the left and then you lean back. So the Talmud says Prakton is not considered reclining. And reclining to the right is not considered reclining.
Mhm.
And not only that, reclining to the right is dangerous because maybe you will maybe if you're reclining to the right, maybe you will you'll put the trachea in front of the esophagus.
As opposed to leaning to the left.
Yeah, you could choke. You could choke if you do that.
But not if you're reclining to the left.
No, left, it's safer. Brockton is somebody who just lies down on their back. So that's also dangerous. Some say it's the opposite way, so you shouldn't do that. So what about, okay, there's no question. Should you lean to the right? So if you lean to the right, the Talmud says that is not reclining. Charlotte, you had a question? Okay. So,
No.
okay, fine.
No.
Okay, fine. So reclining to the right is not, that's not, you haven't fulfilled your obligation, and it's also dangerous. Because when you're reclining, because you eat with your right hand, that's what Rashi says. So if you're reclining to the right, it's awkward. So then the question becomes, what about a lefty? Should a lefty recline to the right? But then we have the problem of it's dangerous. So there we say that even the lefty should recline to the left, so it doesn't choke. Okay, what about somebody who doesn't have a right hand? So what?
This is never the option, right?
Somebody doesn't have a right hand, and if he reclines to the left, he can't eat. So he can recline to the right. But not everybody agrees with that.
Anybody would choke there?
I don't agree with the right line.
So the other position is, well, one position is you recline to the right. The other position is you shouldn't recline, because the only way to recline is if it's a way of freedom, and this is not an aspect of freedom. Okay. So now we come into another category. It's a very interesting category, which is only at the Seder. Only at the Seder. This is the category of things that are done in order to engage the children. Things that are only done in order to engage the children. We don't know any other, we had a problem, Moshe, you have questions?
Yeah.
There's no other time I could think of, no other holiday that we specifically do things in order to engage the children. It's just the Passover Seder. So there are many customs on the night of Pesach that are only developed in order to engage the children. A portion of these customs are found in the ancient customs, and others just developed. So what are some you might think of? What are some you might think of? What's a custom at the Seder to yes, Moshe? Afikomen. So Afikomen is a very good case study. The idea of taking the Afikomen and hiding the Afikomen, where'd that come from? So that's a very good case study. So
Carrying the load.
carrying it on your back and walking around. That's another. So we'll see. Okay.
So there's also, I've seen at stores where they have little toys for the 10 plagues
Right. So then there's
that they
custom
put on the
giving out
table.
toys at the table to engage the children. So we'll see where these customs come from. When I was growing up, my mother saw the custom of getting that some communities had a custom during Dayenu of taking a scallion and smacking the person next to you with the scallion. When I was a little boy,
That's not a good idea.
I got excited. I did that to my sister, and she got very upset at me, and then it caused a little bit of tension at the Seder.
Imagine.
So you always have to remember that when you introduce a new custom, you have to be sensitive to your audience. Not that it was my mother's fault, it was entirely my fault. But to be fair, I was a little kid. So I think I was like 16 or 17. How was I supposed to know better?
As a little kid, for you, as a little kid.
I hadn't matured yet.
Yes.
That's what happened when George Bush was running for president, the first George Bush. Like 2 weeks before, 10 days before the election, they said, "Oh, you had a drunk driving arrest 2 years ago." Remember that?
Yeah.
So he said,
But it's
that was a mistake of my youth. And he defined the youth as 2 years ago. So that's the basic idea. What I'm saying, it's a mistake of my youth, but I define the youth as whatever age I want. Okay, so the Rav Chaim Brisk says, main obligation of a son on this night is to ask Manishtana about all the changes, and not specifically the 4 questions. Meaning to say, the idea of Manishtana, where you have these 4 questions, those are just examples. The main thing is not for a child. The main thing for the child at the Seder is not to say the exact 4 questions, but to ask what's different. That's what Rav Chaim Brisk says. Okay. So therefore, for this reason, you got a question, Moshe?
What about the like the youngest is supposed to sing?
So that's what he's saying. He's saying that the obligation. Now, this is his unusual position. I mean, this is not the halacha, but his position was that the whole point of the Manishtana is not for a child to memorize those 4 questions, but rather to ask questions. That's his obligation, to notice things that are different and to raise the point about them.
Like an inspiration.
Yeah, so those are just examples. And so therefore he says, for this reason, people created, hello Noam, how you doing? You see all the pizza on the counter?
So.
Whatever you want to take, by all means. Yeah, so therefore, for this reason, we're doing the Haggadah here. Give Noam a Haggadah. So no, we're just introduced, we're discussing, and this is relevant to Noam, because Noam's got like 400 kids under the age of 6. How many kids do you have there, Noam?
Still only with 3.
3 kids, but they're all under the age of 7, right?
600.
Yeah, 6 and under.
God willing, another soon, but not.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay, so the point, Baruch Hashem, God willing. But the point is that, so on the Seder night is the only night of the year where there's a specific custom to do things differently just to engage the children. And we're talking about what the source of that is. So we pointed out just now, Rav Chaim of Brisk says that the Manishtana, which I'm sure your at least your 6-year-old will memorize a portion of it in school. Rav Chaim of Brisk says, Seder, no, there's no point memorizing everything. You're supposed to ask your own questions. What do you see differently? What's unusual about this table? And that's the point. And so therefore, for this reason, it became a practice to introduce new things at the Seder to try and get the children interested, so they'll ask the real questions, not just the Manishtana. And so therefore, what are some of the things like in the Seder, in the Talmud, it says they removed the table and they gave out at the beginning nuts and treats. Usually you only serve dessert at the end. Now they serve dessert at the beginning. And the Rambam writes that after you pour the second cup of wine, then the child asks. And he asks the Manishtana. So he says, he's basically asking about the differences. Manishtana, the differences. That you have to, that the whole idea is to notice the differences. So that's a basic idea of Seder night. You're supposed to notice the distinctions. So one of the first distinctions that they brought about in the Talmud was the giving out of nuts at the beginning of the meal. This is highly unusual. It'll be like giving a child, when you sit down to a table, giving them a lollipop or chewing gum to start the meal, and the child say, "What's going on here?" So that's the equivalent. Except even nuts is healthier than okay. Another custom is what Moshe talked about, the grabbing of the afikomen. So do we think that that's a custom that has a source? So first of all, even before the taking of the afikomen, there was a practice to snatch the matzah, to like grab the matzos, and to eat it quickly. And so the Talmud says that Rabbi Akiva, the only time he left the Beis Medrash was on Seder night and on Yom Kippur night. He went home. But generally speaking, he stayed there. And the child will be holding the matzah in his hand and you grab it away from him. So that's an ancient custom. But now we're going to the practice of stealing the afikomen. Did you have that custom in your... Or, well, how do you get it? So there's a practice of child gets the afikomen and he hides it, but how does he get it? So he takes it from his father. So, of course, I'm going to say something that might get people upset. So do you have permission to say something even if it gets people upset?
You have my permission.
Do I have permission?
Absolutely.
There is another faith that has a holiday around the same time that we have our holiday, and they also hide. They have a search also.
Oh.
Moshe, you could tell them.
It's today?
Nowadays.
I think it's today, no?
What's today?
Easter?
Easter's not. Easter isn't Easter on a Sunday?
Yeah, Easter's on. Well, no, not today. I meant
This week, Friday, Good Friday. But they do an Easter egg search.
Oh, okay.
They hide their Easter eggs. So we also have
Actually something that, do people actually do that?
yeah.
Where's the bunny? Like, I don't get where they get a rabbit from the Bible. Like, where's that?
I don't know, but I'm saying there's a lot more people, I guarantee you, who search for Easter eggs than search for the afikomen. That I'm 1,000,000,000% sure. That's Elon, that's a terrible idea.
They have an Easter egg hunt every year at the White House, on the White House lawn.
Yeah, they do it in
Yeah.
many houses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Charlotte. And what are you going to say, Moshe?
Like, isn't the just about the afikomen, it's not just like we were talking about how it's like a kid's kind of thing,
Yeah.
but like there's also like the part of like breaking it, like putting the part aside, and like that part is also like part of the afikomen. So that's not just like a kid.
So you're right there. So Moshe is actually absolutely correct. There's a concept of breaking the afikomen in half. So that is an important concept as well. So yeah, so we didn't get to the afikomen. We'll take up next time about where is this. Let me just say it very quickly. The Chok writes that it says you grab the matzah, and so it's possible that from this idea of grabbing the matzah came the custom that the kids come and they grab the afikomen to stay awake as part of the practice. But some say that the reason is just so they ask. but there are a lot of different reasons. The Makor Chaim writes that the custom is to steal the afikomen to show how much they love the mitzvah. To show how much they love the mitzvah. The Sefer Matamim says that they don't want the kids to sleep, and so therefore they made this big game so that you could promise them a gift so that they'll stay awake. Some say that the reason is because that this way, by the fact that the kids are making such a big deal about the afikomen, we won't forget to eat it, because otherwise you can imagine we're going to forget to eat it. It gives more importance to it. Some say that it shows how Yaakov got the bracha. Okay, fine. Some say that since you do it stealthily, it reminds us that the dogs didn't bark that night. Some say that it is to talk about external power of whatever. Okay, so some say that is to remember the Exodus where they took the utensils of Egypt. But there are some people who are very much against this practice and have a whole bunch of authorities that are very much against it. You shouldn't steal it. You shouldn't make it into that. Don't teach the kids how to steal. So there's always negative Nancy in the room, but we should have a debate about that, Jeff. Should one steal the afikomen at the Seder?
That's a bad thing for children.
To learn, but it's a game. It's a game. It's like, well, you have a game like steal the bacon where you just put the ball in the middle and you have to get it. And nobody actually thinks that the children are stealing. It's a game. It's a drama. But I just give it to my kids and I say everyone's getting a gift. But they always, there was a story that recently somebody died. And they found after she died, 20 afikomens in her house hidden. Every year she hid them and nobody found them. All right, let us stop it now.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thanks,